Hello, everyone, and welcome to Growing Together, a gardening podcast with me, John Lamb, and Don Kinsler, a lifelong gardener and the North Dakota State University Extension horticulturist for Cass County. Don, how you doing today?
Well, I'm doing well. Well, happy spring.
Happy spring. We're I was going to say we're there. We're almost
kind
there.
Of there. I know there's some wintry weather, in the mix, but it's March.
Exactly. We're in mid-March. I would say for the most part, my yard has still a little bit of snow or packed ice, but we've got a very shady yard. A lot of the ice is gone. The melting's gone.
You can start getting a sense, on some of these nice, pleasant days, stroll around the yard, you're starting to get a sense of how, of how things did over winter.
Yeah. What are you seeing?
Well, I am seeing a fair amount of damage on our rose bushes. Okay. And when I say damage, the rabbits nibbled some before I got fencing around, but also a winter injury, even on the winter hardy Canadian types. We didn't have much snow cover, and we did have some pretty cold days. And of course, that combination, little snow, insulation, plus cold temperatures, that's a recipe for winter dieback on roses. But in most cases, they don't totally die. The canes die back. You can tell the blackish brown injured part, and then you trace your way down, and then you see a demarcation, and below that it's green. And so I see life down below, but I'm going to have to do a heavy pruning, probably first part of April. But roses like that. Yeah. And so I keep my fingers crossed that they aren't totally died out all the way down into the roots. I've never had a winter hardy rose do that, to totally die out. Yeah. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. How about you around your yard? Noticing anything?
Well, I had to scare a rabbit away yesterday. It was actually, it found something green to eat. It was eating a green leaf. I don't know what that was, but I think we did okay as far as the things that we didn't have rabbits in the backyard and out front. I don't think, they didn't get into the burning bush, and
they
didn't. No, we fenced that off, and we fenced off around the hydrangea. So those things.
Are you seeing any vole damage? The channels kind of on the surface of the lawn, the little meandering channels. I'm seeing a little.
Yeah, we haven't seen that in our place yet, so that's good.
Not like in some past years. I've heard from a few people in their yards, they did see some meandering channels, when the snow disappears. But one thing that helps is the lack of snow cover didn't give them as much protection. Yep. If we have heavy, heavy snow, deep snow, then they've got protection from predators and everything. And hey, we've had an owl in our yard. Oh, we've spotted an owl. I love it.
That's great.
And of course, that may, some of these voles might not have made it through the winter because of my friend the owl.
Yeah, exactly. They'd be a natural kind of pest protector there. Well, yeah, and then we'll see what we get this winter or this weekend for some weather. We may get some freezing rain, probably will get some freezing rain and from snow. So these kind of false starts, these things that give you hope. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, about things that give us hope that maybe you want to dig a little bit deeper on.
That might not be reality.
Yeah, that might not be reality. But first, you got a letter that you wanted to talk about.
Yes. Speaking of rabbits, I got an email. In fact, I got a couple emails on about the same question. Okay, so Bob writes in and says that he had a lot of rabbit activity in his yard because when the snow all melted, his yard was dotted with rabbit droppings. So Bob writes, are these rabbit droppings harmful to the lawn and the plants in my landscape? And also, are they harmful to humans? And so thanks, Bob, for writing in. And I got a couple of very similar questions like that. And when I look around our own yard, there's a lot of rabbit droppings. Luckily, they were outside the fencing that I put in. But so now that brings up the good question. What about all these rabbit droppings? Are they harmful? What's the story? So I did a lot of research on that. And here's what I found. Washington State University did a study on rabbit droppings, rabbit manure. And what they found was that rabbit droppings are generally about 4 times as nutrient dense as other type of manure, such as horse manure, cattle manure. Wow. And a couple times more potent than chicken manure. And of course, composted horse manure, cattle manure, chicken manure have been used, for millennia, in plants. And they also indicated that rabbit manure is different. It's called a cold manure. The other manures are called hot manures, meaning they need to be composted first. If you use those fresh manures on plants, they're going to burn them. Rabbit manure, on the other hand, a cold manure, doesn't burn plants. And of course, that's been my own experience in the past when rabbits have been nibbling on stuff all winter. And of course, you find the round droppings in the spring. I've never done anything with them, and they've never hurt anything. And so you don't need to remove them. But of course, they indicate to, always use gloves of protection, be health conscious with any time you're handling manures. And if they are in piles, then just rake them and distribute them. They are a slow-release organic fertilizer, so they aren't going to burn anything, even if they're right next to a plant. And so just rake them around a little. They'll slowly release their nutrients. Another emailer with similar question had wondered, do we need to change our fertilizer regimen then? And no, I would keep your, if you fertilize your lawn, if you fertilize your plants with water-soluble, just keep doing what you're doing, because the rabbit manure is a very slow-release, gentle, organic type fertilizer that will release its nutrients over an extended time. So I'd fertilize kind of like you usually would. But, and somebody else, when I was discussing with them, said, well, rabbits are pretty smart. They wouldn't want to do something that would kill the plant because they want to keep eating on it.
Right.
And so they're maybe doing that plant a favor by fertilizing it as well.
Yes, there is a saying, don't blank where you eat. So, that's, I think rabbits are maybe taking that,
yes,
they are,
exactly.
But they're doing it in a productive way.
So anyway, but that has crossed my mind too over the years, when you see all those droppings, am I supposed to be doing something with it? But anyway, it's, it's interesting. I had never heard the differentiation between cold manure and hot manure. So you don't need to compost the rabbit manure, just kind of leave it, rake it around a little bit.
Is it something about nitrogen in there? I don't know what that is.
Yeah. There's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium.
Okay.
It's a good, fairly well-balanced type slow-release organic fertilizer. And when I was investigating also, I found that online you can buy bags of rabbit manure. So, and maybe if you've had lots of rabbits, you could go into a cottage industry and sell the manure. But so anyway, in the meantime, it was, count the day lost, you don't learn something new. I had never heard cold manure versus hot manure.
Well, speaking about things, learning something new, you wrote a column a couple weeks ago about something that you saw that you thought was maybe a new plant, a new variety of plant. And it turned out that there was more to it than that.
Yes, so what triggered this, what triggered the whole situation was a reader of the garden column sent me a picture of a hosta that had very deep, bright red leaves. And they wondered, would this hosta, it wasn't named, there was no name on it, but a picture, would this hosta do well in our area? And also, the second part of the question, will hosta grow from seed? And well, when I took a look at that picture, I thought, oh my God, what have I been missing?
Right.
Are there red hostas? Have the plant breeders developed something? And it totally escaped me.
It's a very dynamic looking picture.
We got to know about these.
Yeah, you ran it in the forum with your forum column a couple weeks ago.
Right. And so anyway, I started researching because the typical colors on hosta, of course, there's green hosta, there's variegated, kind of a whitish cream and green hosta, there's kind of a yellowish green. Yeah. There are some that are fairly deep blue, kind of a nice silvery bluish green hosta. And so we're familiar with those. But red hosta, wow. And so I started investigating, and no, there are no the genetics just are not there in a hosta to produce a red-leafed hosta. And so as I was kind of investigating online, I saw a picture of a variegated hosta. It had kind of the typical cream in the middle, but the edges were bright red. I thought, man. And then I looked closer, and the flowers coming up out of the hosta were not hosta flowers.
Right.
Typically they're kind of a little, whitish, creamish, kind of bell-shaped flower up on a spike. Yep. Well, these looked like kind of a stilby type flowers.
Yeah.
And man, wow, this is something. And then all of a sudden, my searching led me to a very popular online shopping site. And there was the picture of her hosta, her red hosta that she was wondering about, and seeds were being sold, 100 for about $12. So I thought, so that's why she's wondering if hosta can be grown from seed. And so then all of a sudden that same site, as I kind of scrolled through the site, here was a red, white, and blue leaf hosta. It almost looked kind of gross. I mean, it was so bright it would put a flag to shame.
Yeah.
And then there were different, just weird, almost weird looking hosta. One with purple leaves. And then, of course, it occurred to me, these are manufactured AI, artificial intelligence images. And then the more I looked, I saw. And then all of a sudden, it clicked in the back of my mind that on Facebook, I had been seeing a lot of just spectacular flowers. Okay, let me tell you about one of those. Okay, one of those, it was an iris that was it had iridescent colors on it. It was kind of a fascinating blend of purple and orange. And of course, there are iris that are just beautiful. And of course, I thought, man, but this one just glistens. And I thought, wow. And of course, people were commenting on it. Man, I'd love to have an iris like that. There was no name on that iris, no cultivar name. I might mention, too, on that national site that was selling the seeds, there was no cultivar name on those hosta. Also, they were just being termed rare, a rare hosta. Well, anyway, okay, back to my iris. So anyway, as I was looking at that, and people were just amazed. And then a gardener, an obviously well-seasoned gardener, commented and said, that iris is growing out of daffodil foliage. And then I thought, oh, man, I've been duped.
Yeah.
And I looked, and sure enough, the foliage wasn't iris foliage, which is kind of a wider sword type, kind of bluish,
very
greenish.
And
and these were daffodil leaves, which is kind of a rounder leaf, more of a grass green. And then when you looked at them, it's like, wow. And I thought, I've been duped.
Yep.
That's an AI photo. That iris is imaginary.
Yep.
Only somewhere out there in the world of AI, and it doesn't exist. And so anyway, I thought, shoot. And then, so it's interesting. I've been seeing more and more of these plants on Facebook and other sites that all of a sudden a person realizes, these aren't real. And I'm seeing photos of landscape, like perennial beds, where everything is just too good to be true. It's just the colors, and it's intense. And then all of a sudden you realize, and more people are commenting that, well, that's AI.
Yeah.
And so it's what a fascinating world. But, people are getting on to this, though, because for all the comments that I was seeing, oh, man, I'd love that. I'd love that iris. I'd love that plant. What a beautiful flower bed. And then an interesting comment by one person said, would you people stop sharing these AI photos? They're totally make-believe. And, so it's interesting. I suppose, is there any damage, harm in these, getting us excited? Is there any harm in AI showing us plants that maybe we would like to see, or a landscape that maybe we would like it to be in our own yard? It's always fun to dream, but when shopping sites start selling 100 magic seeds for $12, well, then that kind of crosses the line.
So go ahead.
And of course, like I mentioned, hosta can be grown from seed. Mm-hmm. So definitely. So I looked at some of the reviews on that site to see if people that had bought these magic seeds, I'll call them, what the response were. And well, a number of people said, my seeds aren't germinating yet. There were responses like, gosh, I can't wait to see those hosta are just so colorful. I can't wait to have these in my garden. I can't wait for my seeds to sprout. And then one person said, the review was, well, my seed sprouted. They're nothing like the photo.
Yeah.
And so chances are what's going to sprout if those seeds do come, and I hope they are a hosta seed and not something else, not Jack's Magic Beanstalk or something. But they're probably going to be a green hosta, maybe a variegated hosta. When you start seed from hosta, which you can do, they're going to be variable. For example, if you bought a named cultivar of hosta and collect the seed from that and grow them out, they're going to be kind of like kids in a family. Each is probably going to be a little different. Mm-hmm. So they may not give you back exactly the hosta that you took seeds from. There might be variability. And so I suspect that if these are hosta seed that people received, that they might be green and white. Might be an interesting mix, but I can assure you they're not going to be red, white, and blue leaves.
I never thought about growing hosta from seed. How long generally would that take for them?
From the point you seed them, you're going to have a very tiny plant the first season.
Yep.
And, when I say a tiny plant, I suppose by the end of a season, you might have a 6-inch leaves with about 6 inches maybe.
Okay.
So it's going to take, for example, to produce the size of plant that you would buy at a garden center. I'm kind of thinking they're probably in a 6-inch diameter pot, and you've got a pretty robust plant when you buy them at the garden center. Those are probably at least a 3-year-old plant.
Okay.
Probably from seed. Mm-hmm. And of course, the named cultivars would have been divided. You propagate them either from tissue culture, where you take little cells and grow them on, or you divide the plants, because they aren't going to come true from seed. So, but in most cases, it's probably taken garden centers and wholesale producers probably at least 3 years to produce the plants that you buy. So I'm sure we can expect to take at least 3 years from seed to produce a hosta potted, such as you would buy at a garden center.
So let's talk about what we should be doing as consumers then. How do we be better consumers? Because we see something, we think it looks great, we like it. What should we do? I mean, because you were talking about that you saw these available on a reputable online retailer, but not a place that's known for plants.
Right.
More of a general store.
Yeah, because I've shopped online, and some things if you can't find locally, I bought things online.
So what things should we look for if we're buying plants or buying seeds online? You talked about seeing a cultivar name.
Yep, exactly. So whether you're buying a plant online or whether you're looking at an image and wondering if it's true, plants that are that do actually exist and not just in somebody's imagination will usually have a name, a cultivar name or a botanical name of some sort. For example, in a minute, we're going to talk about some kind of alternatives to these make-believe plants, if we want something colorful. For example, a Heuchera coral bells. There's one just brilliantly colored. The cultivar is called wildberry. And so there will be names on these plants. And so if a person is looking for a plant online, if it's just called, a rare hosta or something, without a cultivar name or a botanical name or more information, I'd be suspect of it.
Yeah.
And also reputable sites online that are sharing photos. My Facebook stream is filled with plant images from plant companies. And if they've got a bright colored iris, they'll say what the name of it is.
Right.
Purple ruffles or whatever that cultivar name is, because they want you to be able to find it and buy it if you want. And so they will name it.
Well, and plus also the people or the companies that have generated those plants, they demand that their names be on there. So that's a good sign that it is a reputable, that if it can be traced back to a company or a farm or a school,
right, because
if that's
these patented, many of these plants are patented.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of work that has gone into breeding these. And so you're absolutely right, John, that name has to carry on to that plant and the label.
If you see something online and you see the name, then maybe one step would be to go to a reputable garden site, a place that you know and trust, and look and see if they have that. If they do, not saying that you need to buy it from that place, but just that you can verify that this does exist, that the Don Kinsler hosta does exist,
And so if there's no way to trace that plant, no name or anything, I'd be really suspect of it. Because like I mentioned, that iris, you had to look awfully close, and I missed it. I didn't notice until it was pointed out to me that it was growing out of daffodil foliage. And, even on a hosta, a person might not know that flower coming out of the make-believe hosta was an astilbe flower. You might not, unless you've grown both of those. And, but like even online, the online images that a person might see, the AI, many of the AI images right now have kind of surreal look to them.
Super polished. I mean? Yeah.
They're a little, maybe a little too that crisp. Almost don't exist in reality.
Yeah. Yeah. And then this is something that we're seeing across the board, not just in gardens, but as gardeners, we are excited for things like that. You say, like, there's how many plants that you want to grow that you've never grown.
Oh yeah, bucket list. I'm not even near the end of my bucket.
There are things, and every year that there are new variations.
And so education, just with all of us just knowing in our mind that these AI images are there. That helps greatly. Now, another thing that these AI images are causing a problem with nationally is people get excited about these plants. I was excited about that iris that I saw. Well, anyway, people are excited, and they will take these images to a garden center and say, okay, I'd like this plant. And then when the garden center employee looks at it and says, well, there's no name, and I believe that was an AI-generated image, it creates untrust.
Right.
Is that a word? Distrust.
Yeah, distrust.
Distrust with the world of plants.
Yeah.
And so they don't really help anyone.
Right.
And so garden centers kind of have to try then to steer gardeners to what is reality. And so, those images do actually cause some amount of harm as well.
Yeah. Well, let's take a quick little break. When we come back, we're going to pivot to the things that we saw, the online plants that you saw, and that if you like them, while they may not be real, if you like that visual, maybe we're going to make some suggestions for plants that maybe you do want
exist.
That do exist. Then that in pretty short order, you can go out to a local garden center and pick up.
Great.
Get 3 months of local news for just 99 cents a month. You'll get unlimited access to the news you need to stay engaged and connected to your community. Visit inforum.com/subscribe now to get 3 months of local news for only 99 cents a month.
Okay, we're back. We're talking about recently, Don, you wrote a column about discovering some AI images of plants that really look too good to be true.
They exist only somewhere in the imagination.
Yeah. But so we thought that, because we both saw those pictures, we were both astounded by that. And on first reaction, I think, at least on my end, was, I want that. And,
Exactly.
and then, learning in short order that, well, I may want that, but that does not exist. But we thought it would be good to look at some things that do exist. And so, again, so we're talking, Don wrote this column a couple weeks ago for the forum, so you can go online, you can see the photo there, but it was a hosta. One hosta was all white, and another hosta was mostly white with a red around the leaves.
And I think we also pictured the red, white, and blue
red,
hosta.
White, and blue.
There were red, white, and blue leaves.
And so what we thought we'd do is like, well, what are some plants that maybe you would like, if you like the look of those, some plants that do exist, and that as soon as garden centers open up here and start stocking their plants, you will be able to find, and you could bring home and you could plant it.
Yeah, when I first, when that email first kind of caused me to look at all the AI type of plants and things, at first I kind of thought, well, man, I was a little bit downhearted. I thought, gosh, this is... these plants just are kind of, I was kind of downhearted that these images are out there. But, I quickly turned around, because when I actually thought about it, nature has given us such beautiful plants that we don't need to create artificial images in our head. And so the more I thought about it, I thought, well, I'm perfectly happy and thrilled with what nature and the plant breeders have given us. And so we don't have to try to think up something, an artificial intelligence image.
Also that the ones that you saw, the AI generated ones were seeds. Or seeds available as seeds.
Right.
Here we're talking about plants that, again, you can go out and you can buy the whole plant, and it will be
when you're buying the plant, you see
it, and you get that immediate reward right away.
Yes, and you see that the color or the structure of this plant is right there.
Yep.
I can touch it, I can see it. And I can tell it exists.
So let's talk about some kind of since these were hostas, let's talk about some kind of shade plants or shade plants with color.
Yeah. And so anyway, when I just did a quick look to see, okay, well, what are some good alternatives? Let's talk about something that we actually can have. And one of the first things that popped up with colorful plants were the plant variety perennials called Heuchera, coral bells, Heuchera. Heuchera is how I pronounce. I
pronounce it Heuchera, but
yeah,
Heuchera,
others pronounce it Heuchera.
Yeah,
and coral bells. Beautiful. The nice thing about coral bells is that there are lots of different cultivars with colorful leaves, and they also have a nice flower. So you get kind of the the best of both worlds. So as I was looking at colorful coral bells, a new variety, a cultivar named, is one called Wildberry, and it's got beautiful purplish leaves. And so again, that's not something imaginary. I can go to Garden Center and buy Wildberry. You might have to search around a little, but it exists. Another beautiful one was the Coral Bells cultivar called Primo Wild Rose, a beautiful rosy purple leaf. And there's one called Dolce Apple Twist, that a bright lime green. And I mean, when I viewed these, again, I was viewing the image online, but these were from the Proven Winners brand of plants. Now, many garden centers handle this brand of plants. They're oftentimes in a white pot with a big PW on. And you see, they're kind of a wholesaler and breeder. And our local garden centers get these plants in from that wholesaler, Proven Winners, and then grow them on, and we buy them. And so Proven Winners material that's a reliable, real-life organization with cultivar names on their plants. Another big producer, the Ball Corporation. So you'll see these different reliable, big wholesalers that have bred these materials, and so they exist. Another beautiful one, a Proven Winners coral bells, called Cherry Ruffles, that did have reddish leaves, almost like those leaves that I saw on the AI hosta, except these actually do exist. So now those were just a few quick that I thought that, wow, those, and coral bells, of course, can do well in kind of shade, part shade. Some of the varieties will do very well even in sun. And I thought, those would give real color in anyone's flower bed or landscape. And you have it. We don't need to buy magic seeds online. We've got a lot of shade in our yard, and I've liked coleus over the years. This is an annual, obviously. Oh man, yeah,
and the
beautiful new cultivars of coleus.
And kind of the same thing with coral bells is that there are so many varieties out there, but they will grow, and they will grow big in just 1 year. And also, we're finding out that this is the first year we've tried to overwinter a couple. We've taken some clippings. We're having some success, and I think that's based on our, we're learning as we go. But so it's not a perennial, but it's also it's a nice
almost
annual.
Act as a perennial because you can keep it, winter it over, take cuttings, and put it out in containers and things the next year.
But just they get so big too, and it's really nice.
Colors are so beautiful in coleus, a lot of the newer ones too. Another one, John, that you mentioned was caladium.
I really
have you grown those?
I have not. My girlfriend doesn't like them as much as I do, so we haven't gotten to that point yet. We've got other things to do in other places, so we haven't come to caladium.
Caladiums grow from a bulb. type structure. And so you can buy the bulbs of those and then start them early in a pot in a nice warm spot, and they'll grow. You can also buy caladiums potted at a garden center. You can overwinter the bulb. I think it might technically be called a corm.
Okay.
A true bulb is like an onion or a lily. And so a caladium, I'd have to check, might be technically a corm. But anyway, it's an underground structure.
And caladiums also have they're big, kind of like almost heart-shaped leaves,
yes.
Would you say? Yeah.
Yep, kind of an elongated heart-shaped leaf. You're right. And the colors are just intense. There are red, green, and white.
Mm-hmm.
All in the same leaf. Red, green, white, all in the same leaf. There are caladiums that are kind of yellowish and green. Some are kind of a purplish and green. Lots of different colors.
And sometimes the textures will be like spotted. Sometimes there'll be more kind of a standard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sun, part sun, part shade. They like a little bit of a protected spot. So if you've got a little bit of a spot that isn't in blaring sun, they do very, very well. But a good addition of color to those. And what I like about that is it's natural.
Yeah.
It's nature. The breeders work with nature to develop these things, and they have a look that is just beautiful. And, so I'm actually happy that somehow AI hasn't put those colors down on an actual plant. Because if you look at some of those AI images, it's kind of like, they're almost gaudy to a point where I'm kind of happy that's not reality. I'm totally happy with what the plant breeders. We're in plant good times.
Yeah.
There are so many cultivars that have actually been made. And so, when you think about the different container plants and things that are sold at garden centers, so many beautiful things that, we don't need AI to artificially coax us on.
Another annual that we've liked, especially to kind of plug in, maybe among the hostas, just to get something with a little bit of color, but also a different shape leaf, Rex begonias.
Oh, they're beautiful.
And they can get really big too.
Yes. Great big
really
plants, great big leaves.
Yes.
Yeah, Rex begonias. Many of them have kind of a silver tone to the silver and green. There are some that have a reddish tone, aren't they? And
purplish.
I bet some of them would do beautiful in your yard. Have you been growing them in any of your containers?
Do. We plant them,
awesome.
Kind of along the fence where we have some hostas. Just to have just a little bit of variety there, just some different shapes and some different colors.
Yeah, and as we were talking, John, I wanted to mention too that I'm not opposed to AI, artificial intelligence. I'm not opposed to that because there are some very wonderful things that get done more efficiently by using that. But when we see artificial plants and seeds being sold, well, then of course in that case, sometime, John, I've been tempted to see if AI, how would they do on my garden column?
I wonder.
So, because I've heard of people, putting in, into the AI chat GBT, write a garden column in the Don Kinsler style. I'd be curious what they would kick out.
I don't think they would have your sense of humor. I don't think they could get that yet.
So anyway, it would be interesting. Well, not planning that anytime soon, but it'd be kind of fun. So anyway, I didn't mean to beat up on AI, but just in this case with these make-believe plants, I think it's appropriate that we all need to be educated.
Well, and in the case of consumers, it's buyer beware. Yeah. And we should be, be aware of that. Sometimes there are things that look too good to be true, and sometimes they are.
And it's interesting, John. I just enjoy gardening because you're continually learning. And I really learned a lot in this where I investigated some of this because I didn't realize that there were so many AI images out there of plants and landscapes and things. So I learned a lot. I needed to learn a lot and kind of make myself a little more aware of how common some of these plants were. Because I'll admit, I had been drooling over some of these these plants.
Did you get any feedback on that column?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, someone did write me. I'll protect to protect the innocent. I won't reveal the names. But the wonderful gentleman emailed me and said, "I'm embarrassed. The very picture that you had in the garden column of that red and white hosta. I bought the seeds from it. He said, I'm embarrassed. I said, don't be.
Yeah.
I said, well, plant the seeds.
Yeah.
Let me know what happens. You'll probably get hosta.
And there's nothing wrong with a perfectly good hostas.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I said, yeah, plant the seeds. Let me know what happens.
Yeah.
And so, but it was interesting that someone locally here actually did buy those seeds.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so it's interesting. Again, count the day lost. We don't learn something new. I learned a lot in kind of investigating some of these images.
All right. Well, if people have questions for you, if they want to send you pictures of things to think if this plant is real or not, or if they just have any gardening questions for you, what's the best way to reach you?
Oh, I love the mailbag. Donald.Kinsler, Kinzler, at ndsu.edu.
And you've got an event coming up this Monday, the 17th.
Monday, March 17th, 7
St. Patrick's
p.m.
Day.
Yes, it is. And yeah, I didn't correlate that, but thinking of things green, it's on lawns.
Great thing to know
about. The webinar is how to have a healthy lawn with less work and less inputs. And the way that you can find that registration link is by going to NDSU Cass County, and our page will come up. Our web page will come up, and it has a spot where you can register for any upcoming events and webinars. So NDSU Cass County will take you to our webpage.
Well, that sounds great. Well, Don, thanks again for coming in this week.
Yes, and thank you, John. Thanks, everyone, for listening.